So many episodes. So much movie talks.
Okay, welcome back, Screamers, to another episode all about selecting the right piece of accent furniture. Jason, let's try not to lose our head today, okay?
I'm going to do my best. I'm going to hold on to things tightly. Make sure that nothing slips through the fingers. And I'm going to talk some movies, baby.
All right, so before we get into today, we were talking The Coffee Table, which is a Spanish, I don't even know, like, what genre is this film?
Delicious fun. Let's just call it that.
Dark comedy. Yeah. So we're talking The Coffee Table. We are also going to start a new series on the films of Gregg Araki. We are going to look at his first film, 3 Bewildered People in the Nighttime.
Which, I mean, if you watch the film, you're definitely aware that it's in the nighttime.
Yes.
These films are very, very hard to see, but and hard to find. Not only hard to see, there's hard to see
and hard to hear.
Two different ways.
Like,
fuck me, man.
Oh my god, no! So it's really, as we talk about these first couple films, it's going to be really hard to talk about because they were hard to watch.
Yes.
And I don't mean that I didn't enjoy them, but they were just hard to watch, follow, hear. It was really tough. So these might be a rocky couple episodes with these films.
Yeah. But don't stop listening. It's just
well, but look, if you're listening, you're already used to the rockiness of these episodes anyway.
Can it get more rocky? And the answer is yes. Yes,
of course. Look, before we... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
I was going to say, before we got into this stuff, did you want to talk about one of your new favorite trailers?
Well, first, before we did that, I wanted to talk to you. You may notice, as you've looked at your download stats or what have you, when you look at the Wilhelm via the Apple Podcast or wherever you get podcasts. I don't want to promote any particular brand
these days,
podcast receptacles, but you may notice that this, and again, I can't make any promises because we've just started this episode, but this episode should be shorter than most.
Now, should be the qualifying sort of label on this. That's right. We are coming to you with shorter episodes more frequently equals same amount of great content.
Look, we heard you. All right. we heard that the saying of the Wilhelm was, hey, you guys have some long episodes. And so, look, I don't know, like, it was never like really directed, like, to say don't have that long of episodes. But maybe don't. And so
try something new.
We're trying something new. We're gonna break stuff up. We're gonna try to make shorter episodes at a higher frequency. That way you don't lose anything. We can get to continue to pontificate as much as we possibly want. And maybe the podcast gods are happy, or whomever that may be. Maybe it encourages downloads. Maybe it encourages more engagement. Who the fuck knows?
Maybe they feel better, but we sure do.
Right, absolutely. Look, nothing changes from our end except that Brock has to put out things a little, like he has to do a little bit more work. And I'm not saying I shouldn't qualify with a little more work. I have no idea how much work he has to do. I'm assuming, I'm just going to lay it out there and to ease his anxiety a little bit, to say, it's just going to be it's going to be simple. You just got to do this and that, and it's going to be fine. Like 2 more minutes out of your day, it should
click
be okay.
that button, click this button, we're all good. We're all good.
Right. Jimmy this switch over here, and it's all fine. So,
actually, I just unplug and plug back in things. It makes everything work.
Shorter episodes for you, more work for Brock. Everybody should be happy.
Sounds great. I like this. Yeah, good arrangement.
Look, all I'm saying is you don't. I don't even know the fucking right quote anymore because I kind of forgot because I was watching too much of Rocky. But like, you don't run away from your fear. You ride it, Brock. You ride it. Okay, and we'll talk about
which.
Right. We'll talk about this fucking milquetoast motherfucker like in 3 episodes from now when we talk about Hitman. But like,
did you notice how we just sort of subtly said we actually plan things out?
Yeah, I mean, like, movies come out, guys. We
like
can't.
3 episodes from, we've already got this planned.
We know exactly what we're going to be talking about. It doesn't seem like we do, but and like
that's
a lot
part
of
our charm.
Right, a lot of things can change, but like. Helen Hunt was here this last week, and I didn't go see Twister. They were showing a 4K restoration of Twister with Helen Hunt in the audience, and she was doing a Q&A beforehand. And I did not go see that because I didn't like Twister when I first saw it. I mean, I'm a big, huge Philip Seymour Hoffman fan. Not the 96, I knew like the...
Well,
what
everybody
Hoffman
in
would
that
become.
film.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Right,
we're fans of, right?
Right. But that movie was the epitome of like what would become the late 90s film, like, you know, these mega budget, super, you know, blockbuster films.
Dante's Peak.
Right. Volcano, Deep Impact, Armageddon. They were all these, they just kind of started off that next wave of disaster flicks,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. And again, it also came out like I think like right around the same weekend that Mission Impossible came out, which is, you know, one of De Palma's finest. So like,
Yeah.
you know, it weirdly, like, I don't know, it's weird to me sitting in a theater like what 28 years later and having people feel like they're actually excited for a Twisters or a Twister 2. And I just don't get
because this time
it's personal.
there's two.
Right. He screams out twins.
No.
Like, so like I was telling, like, this is the dumbest fucking trailer. I like, if you would have told me this was a parody trailer for the movie Twister 2, I would have believed you. I don't really get Glenn Powell. Look, he's definitely good looking. I mean, you know, that I get. But there's good-looking dudes all over the place. He just feels like the next Sam Worthington to me. A little bit better looking than Sam Worthington, but like he feels like a very of the moment. But like, will we remember any of the movies that he's in like 5 years from now? I cannot imagine that to be the case.
And if we do, will we remember them for him?
Right.
Because wasn't he in Top Gun Maverick?
Yes.
And we're not going to remember that film for him.
No.
Right?
No. You know, I just, but this fucking, like, this film where it's just this fucking, like, did we learn nothing from Twister 1 where like that we can't predict, and like now and we still got this storm chaser that like is some sort of celebrity that everyone's excited about.
I mean, it's the same story,
But
isn't
has
it?
the same like platitude, like has all these like ridiculous sayings.
Because Glenn Powell is just kind of Carrie Elways at this point. I mean, in this film,
Right. Yes, yeah, he's got
the fancy equipment. He's like got the fancy degrees. He's got all of this stuff.
But it's reversed, right? So he's like the Carrie Elways / Bill Paxton kind of mix, because now he's
he's like a good guy though, right?
And I guess the love interest from a girl who like did wrong by a Twister.
Yeah. So this was the thing, right? Because it's Daisy Edgar Jones, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so like the trailer, this like opening bit shows her driving with like the Dorothy thing from Twister. So like I'm like, oh wait, is she supposed to be like the
Paxton's
child
kid or
of
something,
like?
right?
But apparently not, like at all.
Right. She's Jamie Gertz's kid. Paxton impregnated Jamie Gertz in the first one, and then left, and she's always been like trying to find.
So I'm like, I don't, yeah.
But this whole, I just when I hear the phrase, and again, I don't even know exactly what it is, but if it's like you don't run from your fear, you ride it. I'm just like, I don't know what that means exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know why more sequels don't go the Gremlins 2 route and just like make everything. Then there should be like 400 tornadoes in this movie.
They should be nonstop.
Right. They should be sentient at this point where we're like fighting against the tornadoes. I just like who in a world where people are complaining about IP driven films. And again, I know that we do as well. But like, is this the IP
that we want to drive?
That we want to? This ain't my first tornado. Is this the type of shit that is this the well that we're pulling films out of? If this is how far we've gone. This summer we've seen a reboot, a prequel to a 70 or a 50-year-old horror franchise, and now a sequel to The First Omen.
Okay.
And a sequel to a almost 30-year-old disaster flick that has none of the original stars because most of them are dead, and Helen Hunt's still around. You couldn't get a cameo from Helen Hunt.
I know. Or Carrie Elways. Wait, did he die in the film? I forget.
don't believe so. I don't think anybody dies, do they?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I don't know. I don't know. You know how long it's been since I've seen Twister?
28
years.
Yeah. I'm sure I saw it when it was on HBO or like just in general. Like I'm sure that I've seen it in its video release, but like, yeah, it's not something that like if I'm revisiting an early Philip Seymour Hoffman film, it's When a Man Loves a Woman, and then it's and there's plenty of other Bill Paxton roles you can dive into. Helen Hunt's always been kind of an anomaly to me. Like she existed really. Like one early on in my movie going life because she was in Girls Want to Have Fun and like a lot of those, and then she kind of had like a weird art, like she was in Project X and like she had a bunch of like, then she had this weird like art house phase where I forget all the movies that she was in. She's in like The Water Dance with like I think that's Ethan Hawke and like so there's and then she did Mad About You and then did like she had a kind of a small window where she's like the movie star, right? She's in that.
As Good as It Gets.
As Good as It Gets, that Haley Joel Osment Pay It Forward shit. That Then she's in Castaway.
Right.
And then she just kind of like disappears. Like it's like she should have been Laura Dern in Jurassic Park and didn't get that role. But yeah, it's I would have liked to have seen her Q&A, but just in general, but not around Twister. If they had been showing a repertory screening of The Water Dance, I would have gone.
Oh, she was in that big hit Kiss of Death.
Yeah, David Caruso and Samuel Jackson
and Nick Cage.
Yeah, forget about that. That's a movie
of course you do.
Yeah, but that movie's like crazy enough that it should be bigger.
Bonkers.
Yeah, it's weird how bizarre that film is, and like nobody talks about that ever.
No, because the David Caruso bomb that they talk about is Jade.
Jade, right? And that's the only reason they talk about that is because of 40-Year-Old Virgin, right?
Yeah.
Angie Everhart and Jade.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Have you looked at the cast of Kiss of Death lately? You got David Caruso, Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Cage, Helen Hunt, Stanley Tucci, Ving Rhames, Michael Rappaport, Philip Baker Hall, Anthony Heald, Jesus Christ, Kevin Corrigan.
Jesus Christ is not it.
Actually, he is an extra. He wanted to be uncredited.
Right. As always.
He wanted to see if you were really looking for him.
Like him, right? You got to find him. Have you found Jesus in Kiss of Death?
I'm sure someone did. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's not a good movie.
No, not at all. But
it's not horrible either, though, right? I mean, it's not like it's the worst movie ever made. It's just weird and crazy. Yeah, it was a huge cast.
Like Nick Cage bench pressing people.
Yes,
and then
like I forget. Yeah,
Junior's his name, right?
When Nick Cage has left this ethereal plane and gone off to bigger and better things, we will lament that Nick Cage. We'll be happy that Nick Cage existed, but we will lament that he's no longer here.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. Anyway, Twisters. It looks stupid. What the fuck?
Looks dumb. It looks dumb.
And then Deadpool is going to be the biggest movie of the year, right? It has to be. And I can't imagine really that people are going to be. I mean, are people going to be really excited about Deadpool versus Wolverine or Deadpool Wolverine or whatever the fuck it's called?
I have no idea. I mean, I have no idea.
Because one, just that, you kind of have to have seen Loki, because it ties into time.
It
variance.
Does?
Yes.
Oh, see, fuck this. Why do they make us do homework for this
right.
stuff? I mean, look.
If you haven't seen Loki season 2, you're going to be kind of confused.
But
about
that's the thing.
Deadpool 3.
Right? I mean, if I have to see the first couple Deadpools to understand it, I get that, right? But when you're making me go into different series and different, that's where I'm I'm out. Because I don't care that much about this shit.
The whole premise, I believe, is that this Wolverine is not our timeline Wolverine. It's a different Wolverine. And
I don't care. Whatever bullshit you were just talking about, I don't care. I get it.
I don't think most people do either. I think there's so much content that this didn't work for Rich Kelly and Southland Tales. It's not going to work for Marvel long term, right? There's only so many you can't make, and I guess you can because they've done it, but you've taken comic books and put them into a video medium at this point,
right.
where like now you have to buy every series of comic book because there's crossovers and there's this and there's that, and you won't pick up on. It's too fucking tiring, right? And who has that kind of time? Like I'm not going to sit there and watch. Also, I'm also not going to sit there and watch mediocre episode after mediocre episode. If this was all compelling TV and it wasn't centered around this shit, I mean, like at a certain point, like I don't give a fuck like about time variance or I can't
no, I don't care. No.
To care.
And it's kind of like I feel like in a way some of these comic book movies are turning into some of the things they railed against, right? So if you think about comic books or some of these films as anti-elitist, well, now you're sort of taking the place because you're like, oh, well, you haven't read Red Rider number 34, the one done by Frank so-and-so?
Right,
well,
right.
Then you don't know, like this. And so it's now become like inside baseball. That you have to have gone so far down this like rabbit hole to understand these films and enjoy them, or you're almost scoffed at then by the fandom.
Right.
I mean, no, it's like when somebody says like, you haven't seen Godar's early work. I mean, people hate that shit, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Well, and it's the same thing here. I mean, I sound like I'm making jokes, but I'm actually just like, what the fuck? This makes no sense to me.
Right. And this is what this podcast, because again, we're going to talk about Araki's early works, and now you can say at least I've heard of them.
Because we're here for you.
Right. We're
here for you. So when you go to watch A White Bird in Winter or whatever, you'll understand where the history of Araki.
Right. I was doing some reading, and that right after White Bird was out, he didn't ask me anything on Reddit. And so there were a bunch of people like asking just different questions. It got me actually pseudo interested for a Shailene Woodley film, so I have not seen White Bird in Winter.
So I haven't either, and I would not have even been able to tell you that he directed.
No, I wouldn't have either.
I had no idea. I was going through stuff, and I'm like, okay, I've seen, because there's a lot of stuff of his I've seen, and I'm really excited actually to go back and like rewatch a lot of this stuff too. But then I was like, oh, I haven't seen a lot of this stuff too. And I'm like, he did that? What the fuck? Like,
there's
really?
a bunch of stuff that's kind of near the end.
Yeah.
It's like, it just looks like the flower that drank the rose kind of bullshit. Like it's just like dumb shit, right? It just like the White Bird in Winter just sounds like a terrible fucking movie.
God. Yeah.
And I know it was based on a book, blah blah blah, but like,
but still, it's a stupid fucking title. Like it's
awful.
Okay, right? It's like I read recently read a really good novel by a like Turkish American writer, I believe, and it was called White on White, and I just rolled my eyes. Right? I mean, it's a great book actually. I mean, you should read it. I can't pronounce her name, or I would tell you what it was, but I'm just like, what a stupid fucking title. I just think it's dumb, right? So
yeah,
cash on giant.
I mean,
cash.
Fucking Deadpool 3 will be that.
Yeah.
Like, what else is coming out? Like that's gonna be? I can't even name the shit that's coming out anymore. I mean, I know what's coming out that I want to see, right? I mean, I know those are the things I'm already excited about. I'm excited about Maxine. I want to see Longlegs. There's a lot of horror that I want to see, but like, and there's other shit. I mean, that's been like, I don't know the exact dates, but I'm excited for. Housekeeping for Beginners is on Peacock, by the way. If you haven't,
I need to sit down and actually watch that.
And if you are hearing this and it's not June 26th already, make sure you come out for Of an Age, because we are showing that, and we've already talked about it. But it is a wonderful, wonderful film.
And we're going to keep talking about it because it's really fucking
really good. Yeah. And so is Housekeeping for Beginners. So I definitely highly recommend that. So, and we'll talk about that probably on a future episode as well.
Yes, 100% we will.
All right, fuck Twisters.
Yeah, are you ready to talk about coffee tables and why you should buy wooden coffee tables, not glass coffee tables?
Y les aseguro que esta mesa, por diseño y por su nivel, les va a cambiar la vida a mejor. Les va a aportar felicidad al hogar. Es una mierda.
usted nos ve felices gracias a la puta mesita. ¿Usted cree que nos está aportando felicidad?
¿Tú estás por la mesita, en serio? Te está pasando, ¿eh?
All right. Jesus and Maria, are a couple going through a difficult time in their relationship. Nevertheless, they have just become parents. To shape their new life, they decide to buy a new coffee table, a decision that will change their existence. Or ended.
What's the name of the director?
I don't know. Kaya Casas?
Yeah, okay.
Kaya Casas?
That's why I made you say it. Yeah, this is a Spanish film that had been kind of making the rounds in the the social medias as a film, like, don't watch this film or whatever you do, don't watch this movie, or it's so fucked up.
Yeah, it's one of those like, oh my god, this movie.
Which I say, if you go in knowing that, it's going to probably be a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
I fucking loved this thing, man.
I did too. This thing was just delightful.
It's so funny. It's so tense.
Oh.
I never knew where this was fucking going.
No.
So here's the thing. We're going to spoil this. If you don't want this film spoiled, we can't talk about it without spoiling it.
No.
Not in any linked anyway. So like,
no, because like, all you have to do is like watch the first 15 minutes and like,
right. Yeah. We won't. Well, we'll spoil the entire thing. But
we'll spoil it. And
but
just
definitely go out and seek it out. I think it's on streaming somewhere. But you can find it. And it's it's just a coffee table. And so
Stephen King loved it.
It's great. This is like I like when you talk about like this short little like 90-minute god damn, it's so good. Like it's so
well,
concise.
it never stops.
It's just you're tense the entire time. It adds characters that you hate but that you love to hate. I mean, like, but you're invested in like every person, and it's a four-hander, right? It's not like it's that many characters. I mean, there's a couple of other
I mean, you have like you have like a friend at the supermarket, and you have the furniture salesman,
right?
Really,
and the baby that's there for a minute. The furniture salesman's great. By the way,
he's so good.
So the whole film opens up with this couple that are again, like Brock says, they're buying a coffee table, and they're buying this. Like, the husband has been, he is feeling like he doesn't have control over his own life, right? He's having a baby late in life, which he probably didn't really want to have.
When he even says so.
Right. It wasn't his decision to have a kid.
He didn't think it was the right time for them.
He didn't get to name the kid.
And he hates the name.
And so, like, nothing in his life at this point, and this guy's probably, 40? You know,
I feel like they're both close. 40s, or like maybe he's mid 40s, right? And the wife is a very strong-willed wife,
right?
And so I don't want to say this guy's like henpecked, because she just doesn't take any shit, right? And you get the feeling that he has some shit to give, and she just doesn't.
Right, and one kind of gets the impression too that he's along for the ride for the most part, but now really only like kind of feeling that like. A lot of shit that this, and so he hit the one area where he feels like he can put his foot down. They're redecorating their house is this coffee table, and it is.
He said, "You told me I could pick whatever coffee table I wanted. You picked all the other furniture. You said I get this."
And this is a coffee table where the two legs are naked women that are arching their backs to hold up the table. It almost like rests on their breast.
They're
basically.
like erotic caryatids, right? I
mean, it's a glass table, so you can see the legs through it. And this furniture salesman is pitching them as this is the finest of coffee tables. It's unbreakable.
The glass is unbreakable.
It's unbreakable glass. This is this will last you. This is an heirloom piece, and so the woman's like not having it, and Maria's not having it, and she's like, So this is the best of the best. So this is the table you own in your house. It's like, oh no, I can't. This is talking to the salesman. He's like, oh no, I can't afford such extravagance. And she's like, oh, so it's not a very good deal. It's like, no, it's a good deal for how much you're spending. Like, it's a good deal. Like, but I can't afford that type of thing. This is not, not for me. But it is. You're getting a good deal, and this is an heirloom piece, and it'll last you a lifetime. And so, she relents almost in a sense of like, I'm gonna fuck with you forever. This is another area where I'm just never gonna let you live this down.
Right.
And so they continue to argue. It gets delivered to their home, and he starts putting it together. And she has to go out.
She's going shopping.
She's going shopping
because his brother
and his new girlfriend are coming over.
Yeah.
And they've already been talking about how he, his new brother's kind of a pedophile because he's dating an 18-year-old, and so they're going shopping, and she's like, "Tell me what kind of wine you like," and he's like, "I don't care, just get whatever." And it's like, "You're only you two are only once are drinking it, so just tell me what the fuck wine to get," basically. And so he's left with the baby.
Now, the table has not been put together yet because he's missing
a screw. To hold it to where the glass won't wobble. So the glass is on its side. And the baby starts crying, and he drops the baby.
He's holding the baby, and we don't see it.
Yeah.
All we do is hear the crashing and the breaking of the unbreakable glass,
and the head,
and
the
you just know,
rolls off.
You know exactly what happened at that point.
Well, you do hear like a ball drop in a roll.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, but you don't
see anything. You're in a different room. The baby immediately stops crying because it can no longer cry
that's what happens when the head is severed
from the body. So now we have a severed infant, a severed head, an infant with a severed head, and a man who's freaking out about because his wife is on
his
the
coffee
way home.
table's broken,
and he's got
just
a brother.
bought.
Right, his unbreakable coffee table is there.
I mean, it's just.
And then so
wait. Can we go back?
Yeah.
Can we talk about Ruth?
Yes. Yeah.
Ruth cracks me up, right? So they have this neighbor. This woman with a daughter named Ruth. Ruth is like 12.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And she has this little dog. But they run into them. So he's bringing the coffee table upstairs, and they run into the family. And the mother, Ruth's mother, says, "Well, don't mind Ruth. She's upset with her boyfriend or whatever." And Ruth goes on this like thing about her boyfriend. Oh, it turns out that she has this crush on Jesus, and that she tried to kiss Jesus in the elevator, and he was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" But of course, in her mind, they're having this like passionate affair.
Right.
And
He gave her a book of poetry.
Yeah.
And he was like helping her out with the school project.
With a school project, and she like misconstrues all this to they're having this passionate affair of love, and she's like, "You need to tell your wife about us." And he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Just like over and over.
It's like, "You gave me a book of love poems." He's like, "I was helping you out with the school project." The project was about love. I was like, "I gave you a book of
love poems." Yeah. But she comes back into play later when she's like, "I will be there this afternoon to tell your wife."
So the wife comes home, and so basically he covers it up. He puts the baby in its bassinet. He like cleans up the blood a little bit. He leaves the head under a chair because he couldn't bear to take it out from he couldn't bear to grab it. So the wife comes home and his hand is cut on and so basically he says, the table was broken when I was putting it together. I cut my hand, so that's why there's blood everywhere. And she's just fucking loving it because the unbreakable coffee table is now broken. He's hurt himself, and this is all like perfect comeuppance for him for choosing this ugly ass expensive coffee table. And she fucking just won't let it go. She's just like digging into him and like,
I mean, she even says like, "I can hold this over you forever now."
And so he's distraught, and she's like, and then at different turns, she's like, "I need to go check on the baby." He's like, "No, this is my responsibility. Like, don't. I took care of it. Like, don't. You don't need to go into the room. Like, you go and make dinner or do whatever. You go take care of it and get some rest. I got the baby. It's fine." The brother and his girlfriend come over, and I don't think we found out how young she was until when they came over.
She keeps making, like, Maria keeps making these comments, but we don't really
actual. Yeah.
And
so, they're talking, and it turns out that she's pregnant with her brother's baby, and they're and it just obviously was not planned pregnancy. They're not married, and
right?
She's ridiculously young,
and she's also kind of just ridiculous,
right?
In terms of the things she talks about, and how, like, because she's a vegan, he's a vegan. I mean, so the brother's ridiculous too, right? I mean, these are just like, you just roll your eyes at these people, this couple,
and all the while Jesus is just being torn apart by everything that's going and trying to keep it together.
He's like catatonic. He will stare off into nowhere. He starts chugging wine. He's having like visions and stuff.
right, yes, and
like he cut into, like, he was eating, and all of a sudden he just, like, all this blood like come out of the dish. And everyone's like, what's wrong with you?
Right. And so it all kind of, I was going to say
comes to a head.
So the brother, Jesus blows up at his brother, and basically calls him, it basically says that he's stupid for getting involved with this 18-year-old, that she's a dumb whore for all intents and purposes, and like this is a doomed thing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And he goes to go check on the baby. Willie goes into the bathroom, and he's got these pills, and he's about to kind of take a bunch of pills and jump out of the window. Right?
He's recording a suicide note,
yes.
And that's what his brother hears. And then his brother walks in the bathroom. He's like,
"What's going on?
What the fuck is going on?" Like, who was that? Who was that message to?
And so the brother is freaking. Now both brothers are freaking out together. His younger brother's crying about he's seen the headless torso, the headless baby at this point.
Headless baby in the bassinet.
And they're freaking out. Ruth comes back over to confront, but her dog goes in and gets the head from under the chair.
Yeah, I mean, there's like this delicious confluence of like unease, right? I mean, as a viewer, you're like, oh my God, like I know exactly what's coming, because we know Ruth is coming over. We know Ruth is coming to confront, right? And she does, and she tells like Maria, like, well, your husband's in love with me, and like, and she's like, what the fuck is she talking about? And everyone is just kind of like getting ready to like blow up and boil over, and then the dog goes and gets his head, and everybody just fucking loses it, right? The girlfriend starts puking. Ruth is like like completely like freaking out, and the men are like just like, oh shit, right?
Right.
And then Maria picks up the head.
Yeah.
And then jumps off the balcony.
And then both of them jump off the balcony.
Yeah.
And they both jump off the balcony together. And the brothers left to kind of like explain to the cops what actually happened, because Ruth is catatonic. She can't speak. The girlfriend can't speak, and the brother's just there,
and he's
completely crushed.
And he's just saying the coffee table, but in Spanish,
right? It is the best of like Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt. Like, I want to give this director an anthology series and have him make these, like, you can tighten this up. Obviously, I mean, I know it's a 90-minute film and it never feels long, but you could tighten the story a little bit.
Yeah.
If you needed to, for like I'm saying, for like an hour-long anthology series, I want to watch this guy do. Like, this is what, to me, is what's needed in these types of, because so many times you get like, we reboot IP anthology series and the stories are so fucking toothless.
Yeah.
But like, if I were someone at Shudder and I saw this fucking guy,
oh yeah,
I'd be like, tell me how much money you need, and I want you to do a 10-episode series. Like, I'll finance what you need. Like,
right.
We'll figure this out, because like, if every episode was like this, like, people will be talking about this. I mean, I know we've said that people won't ever do that again, but like, I think horror fans would be like, they'd be fucking blown away by this.
Well, and that's why they're talking about this film now. I mean, I can't believe that this film didn't. I mean, like, why wasn't this like a Shudder original, or why wasn't this like Blumhouse or something?
Like,
I mean, this is good,
right? I don't know why. Like, yes, this is the type of film. Like, if you are talking about the state of theaters, this is the type of film that would get people into the screens. I think like, this is like, as much as people like got excited about Late Night with the Devil, this is something that would be like, oh, this is a Psycho-esque, oh shit, don't tell your friends what this movie is about.
Right.
Tell them they got to see it. but don't fucking tell him what it's about.
Because it happens right away. And the rest of the time you're just like,
yeah, don't show up late. Like, I mean, it's just the whole.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Like the whole premise.
Right. Yeah,
no
don't
gimmick,
don't come in late. But this is something that I mean, this is, I'm sure that I've mentioned this before, but when I was in grad school, I worked with a short story writer named Lee K. Abbott, and he would say, look, you get the what out of the way because we want to know the why, right? And that's what we get, right? We get this what happening, and the rest of it is like, oh shit, right? Let's find out everything else that happens after that.
Yeah.
You get the trouble up front, and then how do we deal with this stuff? And I love it.
Because immediately you're thinking, what the fuck would I do, right?
Right.
You're immediately going, oh shit. Because you get past that moment of like, oh fuck, can I put the head back on the body and make it okay?
I was waiting for like duct tape or something.
Right. Just like, oh please, please.
Can I super glue this? Like, is it okay? Hey, everything's fine,
shit.
Right?
Like, this is like, a less serious like Pet Cemetery, right? Where you like go and bury the body and like hope to God that it all like works out okay. But yeah, but that's the thing too, is that this is funny as shit to me. Like, I know it kind of makes that's, you've got to have a dark sense of humor, but like this plays it so straight. This never winks at the audience at all. If you wanted to take away abject horror from this film, you absolutely could. And I think there's a lot of people who absolutely do. But also this is a very, very dark comedy that like it's, that is begging to be, you're begging for release. It's begging to give you release of like, these are ludicrous situations. And that, you should not be taking this seriously, but it's, man, it's so, like I said,
it's absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
And that's what's so wonderful about it.
And as soon as you get a breath, he introduces another, like, well, now he's got to deal with this fucking thing. And now he's got to deal with his wife coming back. He's got to deal with his brother and his sister coming back. And now he's done all of that. Now he's got to deal with the 12-year-old Lolita that lives down the hall that is in love with him, that he never, ever, that's misconstrued all of their interactions. And he's also, at the entire time, he's got a headless baby that he killed, that is brand new, that's just new from the hospital, essentially. Like, no one's seen it. Like, there's like no one in the apartment complex is like been able to see the baby yet.
In the scene where they go into the kid's room.
Yeah.
And so like this whole time we get this idea that Jesus was like reluctant in being a father, but then we see the care that he took in painting the child's room and putting his old toys on the shelves, and how it's there. Like, oh God, yeah, so tough.
I as soon as I heard that, I mean, I knew what was coming, but as soon as I heard the head roll, I was like, oh yeah, I'm fucking in, man. I am in.
Right. It's no, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I say that and it sounds terrible. I know
it sounds terrible,
but
have you seen his first film? It's called Killing God. It's out on Tubi, and it's all about these four people that are at this dinner together, and I think the director has a lot of like internal familial angst, because like there's a lot of family arguing in Killing God as well. Basically it starts off with two people dying in a car crash, but then it's a older man and his wife, and he's accusing her of sleeping with her boss because he texted her this like kind of a cryptic message, essentially. But they're making dinner on New Year's Eve for his brother, who's Jesus in this movie.
Okay.
So he's working with the same actor, and their father, and so they're all going to have dinner together on New Year's Eve. God shows up and says, "I'm going to kill everyone in the morning, and you four people get to decide. There's going to be two people that are left alive. You're going to give me the names of the people that deserve to live," and so that's the premise of the story. And it's not as good as this. It's not quite as tight as this, and it's a little more campy than this, but it's still like, so like, this is like, even in this is like a lot of the dialogue is sitcom-y. It's not like it's not overly. I think this is what's great about this movie, is that it doesn't overplay its importance.
Right.
Also, never like it never ever like it never winks. It never belies its subject matter, but and it plays it completely fucking straight. I don't know. I was blown away.
Well, and the pacing's good. The sense of claustrophobia that we get from really just being in this one place, right? And he just cannot escape. Like there really is only one way out,
right?
And that's over the balcony.
and I thought, I think it stuck the landing in this case. I think,
I
think because to not show it doesn't show, obviously it never shows any of its real horrors, right? I mean, there's blood, but there's never like. You never see the head. You really only see the baby, and like it's never gratuitous in those senses. It never like makes the audience completely recoil or get angry at the film. Right. You hear stuff, and so a lot of it's left up to your imagination, but it doesn't like you're never given the visage of a headless baby on screen. I mean, we don't need it. I mean, that's the thing. That is not the horror necessarily. Right. It's like, what do we do? But it also never. It doesn't cop out on the end. It gives you an ending and gives you a resolution for all of the characters. And I think that's important, regardless of that's how you would have ended it or not. I mean, I think it's a good, because I think a lesser director would have just kind of left it open, right? Yeah. Left it where all of them are kind of sitting in the room together, not knowing what to do, and then you cut to black. I think having the cops there, having the aftermath of it all, I think it was a good choice. It's so good. I'm not going to say it was fun again. But so yeah, go seek out The Coffee Table, and I don't know, just enjoy it. Right. Okay, should we get into Gregg Araki? Well, we have no other choice. We said we were going to. We always have a choice. We always have a choice. So where do you want to start with Araki? I mean, do you want to give some background on Araki? What do you... Yeah. He's... Look, I guess he's part of that, like, new queer cinema, right? Movement. Well, no, so this was this was an actual, like, term coined, right? From, in 1992 by B. Ruby Rich, who was writing in... Which is such a great name. That is a good name. You expect her to be like some, I don't know, like Long Island, like or like Long Island MC, right? Yo, this is B. Ruby Rich. But she was writing in the Village Voice and Sight and Sound, and she was writing about, I think, some of the festivals in like 92, and that's where this term came from. And she was seeing all these films come out. And 92 would have been Araki, what film? That would have been Living In. Right. So that was, the one that she put in there with this idea. But I mean, So who else is in this then? Todd Haynes, obviously. Well, yeah. Like, does Salons fit in this? Because that's another couple of years before Welcome to the Dollhouse comes out. Well, I'm thinking, really, it's such a loose term, too. I wanted to pull up. Oh, wait, there it is. I wanted to pull up her article, and so she has in there people like Derek Jarman, right? Yeah. Christopher Munch, Tom Kalin, Swoon, some of those films. She's talking really about the stuff that Todd Haynes, yes, right? She's talking about those films that were at Toronto that year and at Sundance and places like that. Paris is Burning, she puts in there. Okay. Stuff like that. Because it's I think it's interesting to think about Marlon Riggs, right? We've seen such a kind of, I don't want to say like shift, but expansion. And if you think around like after this, like 2010, we see a lot like Blue is the Warmest Color, Brokeback Mountain, The Kids Are All Right, Milk, Moonlight. Right. And then, like I said, and despite the somewhat problematic, like Blue is the Warmest Color, we get a lot more of these kind of like, and these are now sort of acceptable, right? Or they're targeting more mainstream audiences where, filmmakers like Araki is like, look. Well, it existed in the art house scene only for the longest time, right? Right. Because, like when I think queer cinema, I think Jean Cocteau, I think Warhol, I think Chantal Akerman, right? Fassbinder. And of course, like, Derek Jarman as well. But yeah, those are very,
art housey.
Right.
Like we're not
those
like going out to
names that
right.
just roll off the average Joe's tongue. Right.
But now, now I think we just talked about, housekeeping for beginners and of an age. And I can't remember his name now. But here's another filmmaker, right, making these films that aren't making any kind of excuses.
Right. Well, even things like Love Lives Bleeding and
right.
I mean,
right.
What was the other one this year? I mean, even things like Monster and
oh, absolutely.
So
yeah.
There's others that are right. This is, we've talked about this before, where these stories are becoming, there are no apologies being made for these. There's no othering of these stories that are being done, and I wouldn't necessarily say, to a larger extent, are they mainstream? That's hard to say, especially in this day and age. Now it's what's mainstream and what's not. But you do have things like, there's Hallmark movies and rom-coms that are those almost seem too pointed at a certain extent. Like where you're just like, all right, we get it. You're trying to cater to a specific audience. That makes it, but whatever. I mean that at a certain point you almost have to do that, right? But yes, I think this, of the almost like frat house sensibility that was going on in independent film at this time. And I say that's not fair, but like you get guys where a lot of it is talky, a lot of it's violent, a lot of it's misogynist talk, a lot of it's based in pop culture references. It's not necessarily, it's for those cool kids who would go up and or uncool kids that would end up making Marvel movies, right?
Well, think of Kevin Smith's Clerks, right?
Right. Yeah. It seemed a lot like that. And then, Bewildered People feels a lot like Clerks.
Well, I was just going to say,
right?
I mean, it's hard not to like kind of see those two things, together. And Clerks would have been a couple years after, 5 years after that, or maybe even more. I mean, so actually, I was watching that, and I was thinking of more with Long Weekend of Despair, which we'll talk about next episode, right? But that's where I really thought about Clerks. When I'm like going, you can see some influence there, from the talkiness, from the like location shooting, right? And then just the black and white, 16 millimeter.
You definitely have to think, and I'm not sure that Kevin Smith was aware enough to have been tuned into Araki's. These would have been hard to find. They're hard to find now. I can't.
Yeah, but he's the guy that knows how to find that stuff,
right? I mean, that 25-year-old Kevin Smith, was he tuned into what Araki was doing at the time? Like maybe because he had seen,
Well, Living In would have been like 92, so I could see
him diving back into some.
I could see someone like, let me sort of give Kevin Smith props, like where I, when I can and when I should. I could see him seeing something like Living In and just going, holy shit, what is this? What else has this guy done?
Right.
And then finding those other films.
Right. Sure.
So a couple things on,
but this also kind of ties in. Sorry, I mean,
no, that's okay.
This also kind of ties into like She's Gotta Have It too. Like this. This has that same. I mean, not that all these three films are obviously in black and white, but I mean, it's still that same kind of. I don't know. This is to me. These first ones are like Faces and Shadows.
Okay. Yes. 100%.
Like this is
100%.
This is queer Cassavetes to me.
Exactly. Right? Yes. No. 100%. So before we jump into this, I just want to say a couple things about queer cinema and how I think especially queer cinema of this time, the new queer cinema. The new queer cinema drew on ideas found in like postmodernism, post-structuralism. So ideas like, human identity and sexuality are social constructs and therefore fluid and often chaotic, which is why these movies are so chaotic as well, right? So likewise, queer cinema is chaotic and subversive. I mean, these are responses to repressive heteronormative power structures, right? And especially like these Araki films taking place at the height of sort of Reaganism ideas and Thatcherism ideas, and the AIDS crisis. Right. I mean, so this is Bewildered People is 87, right? And then Long Weekend is 89. So, I mean, these two are like right in the kind of midst of this stuff, right?
Right.
Both films made for $5,000.
It's fucking crazy.
Shot on 16 millimeter, hand cranked or spring wound Bolex camera. So that means that each take, he only had like 26, 28 seconds.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And what I love about, and we'll get more into this, but so like each scene is like 28 seconds.
Right.
And he's even said this, but his camera kind of stares. Right. It's like a fixed camera. And it just sort of watches. And I really dig that. So he would write the script with that in mind, so that they're fairly structured, I think, in terms of what they're doing. Also, the sound is post-synced.
Right. And that's the biggest, like, from a not doing homework type of perspective, these films are hard to watch.
Yeah.
Like this one, like I found, I mean, because there's been no restoration done.
Which is a shame.
I know, it's fucking crazy, right? I mean, it's like at some point, he has been a voice. And like if you take, his teen trilogy, like it's odd that someone hasn't picked up on putting together a box set, like, and just kind of digging into, because again, I don't think anyone's rushing out to buy those titles except for hardcore cinephiles and
weirdos like us.
Right.
Because I would go out and buy those in a second.
Right. Especially if I could watch them without having to try to fucking watch them. Right. And
to hear them.
Right. That's Long Weekend was the worst for me. Like that, I could barely hear what was happening in Long Weekend.
Well, I was able to find subtitles.
Oh, well, I was too, but they weren't great either.
Yeah,
and they were also, a lot of them were delayed. I could
just like,
right. A lot of them were like speaker
and like with just like
speaker. So it was fucking crazy. But yes, I mean, like these, like if anybody listening to this podcast, and we obviously always encourage people to go watch the films before you listen. Not to say that if you don't want to do that, please listen anyway. But these take some. You have to go to the Internet Archive. There's this is.
You have to do some searching. You can also find them. There's a couple different places. NYU.
Well, the NYU archive has Long Weekend, but I didn't see that it had anything else.
Okay, maybe not. But I think.
And that's the only place to watch Long Weekend.
No, I watched it on Cinephile.
Oh, really?
Which is the University of California has a. Let me pull it up so I can. It is so Cinephiles. It's the University of California, Berkeley Art Museum, and Pacific Film Archive. So okay. I believe there was a file there. They also have a lot of documents and reviews and writings about the film. I actually found.
Send me the link because I would actually like to read.
Okay. I actually found Araki's own sort of press kit for the film. Yeah. They have that stuff there. So yeah, I'll send you the link. I'm pretty sure they had a video file there as well. And I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But I thought, but anyway, I mean, like the Cinephiles at the University of California, it's a really cool resource that I wish I would have known about earlier. So, but
I don't even think these were ever probably outside of bootleg VHS copies. I can't imagine these ever being released anywhere else. Like
which one won an award at Locarno?
That
was it. Long Weekend?
Yeah.
So I mean, but that was it, right?
Right.
I mean, those are like the only places it was played.
And I mean, if they're made for $5,000, it's not like he had a ton of money too.
When it's so, I mean, you talk about guerrilla filmmaking,
right? No permits.
He's just out there on the street, just doing stuff,
right,
and it's just him.
Yeah, and his actors, and so the first one's a 3-hander, the second one's a 6-hander.
Yeah,
and of course you're gonna get extras but I mean, he's going to the AM PM and the 7-Elevens and like laundromats,
sitting in diners,
right? Yeah, filming outside of a Guitar Center, mainly because like in LA, because the signs look cool. Essentially, it's giving him cool set. Like that's but that's really about it. You want to give us a rundown of what the film's about?
I do actually. So this is three bewildered people in the night, 1987.
5 years old, and I have no fucking idea where I'm going. I have no direction. I'm lost. Shit. I don't know. I look around and all I see is the emptiness and the void. Oh, God. I'm afraid that maybe there really is no point or no meaning to anything. Oh, fuck.
David, Craig, and Alicia are a triangle of young lovers who find angst and despair as they sort out their feelings and sexuality in a late-night coffee shop.
It's not only set in late night coffee shop.
I was going to say,
it's very rarely actually set in a coffee shop. I mean, especially because you're doing 28-second takes.
I know.
It's set kind of all over the place. But I mean, it's, you know, and it's
mostly like in people's apartments and houses, right? I mean, I think we go to the 7-Eleven a couple times, right? Yeah. That's where they get coffee most of the time.
Right.
In phone booths. We're in phone booths a lot.
Right. Yes. It makes it easier to convey, right? I mean,
yeah.
You know, it is a shame that we couldn't like fix the audio and at least clean up the video a little bit, because again, like we've said before, this is a chore to watch. I liked Bewildered more than I liked The Long Day. It was a long
interesting because I'm the opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
This one, we can talk about. Let's specifically talk about this one. I feel like these, like coming off of this being an 87. This feels like the perfect kind of queer answer to me, like John Hughes films. Like this is a evolution of these characters. Kind of like John Hughes films never had any queer characters specifically that weren't played for laughs anyway.
Right.
And again, I'm not going to defend or denigrate John Hughes at this point, but these feel like a generation that grew up on that type of youthful angst, and then taking that into like this young adult malaise of like not knowing what to do. Like these kids who grew up in affluence and privilege, now that they're finding themselves in New York and LA, not really kind of being disillusioned with the Reaganomics and the conservative hand wringing, especially when they start to see their friends die off because of sexual transmitted diseases and all right. Yeah. And this idea of like that this is the first generation that is not going to do better than the previous generation. And they're starting to come into realization of that, this Gen X kind of not only aloofness, but just not, just being kind of lost and adrift. And I think the reason I like this story, I felt like these characters at least had some sort of there was a modicum of hope. There's a modicum of positivity in these stories. And because I mean, again, they were all like caught up in their bullshit. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They didn't know whether they wanted to write or to act or to like, but they also were like that budding homosexual relationship. I think allowed for a little bit of positivity in the storyline. Even though, and like, Alicia's like kind of, shittiness towards her boyfriend, and like her cheating on him, but like, and then being really heartbroken when he's actually in love with her best friend.
Right. Right. Who, wait, I see, now I'm going to get the two like confused.
Right. Now I probably will as well.
Because did David and Alicia date at some point before like David realized? Okay, that's the other one, right? That's Long Weekend, where Michael and Sarah dated at some point. Okay, right. Okay, that's what I told. I knew I was going to get that confused. But there is this. I mean, something that I like about both of these is that everyone's an artist, and I think that that's kind of symbolic of these characters and what they're trying to then like figure out, right? Because I mean, as they are. They're trying to work on their art, and which is an extension of themselves, figuring the artistic problems out, figuring out the personal problems, and also realizing that nobody really gives a shit about either.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing here. This like, just the ennui, the malaise, the recognition that they are like a lost group, a lost generation, right? Rather, the forgotten generation, which is, so Araki was born in 1960.
Right. He's
So
older than
he's
yeah,
older.
not-
He's older than his characters,
Right.
but he's able to tap into this sensibility.
But I think kind of just being around. Yeah. I
mean,
agree. Yes,
yeah.
I'm with you. I think it does kind of just like it does feel like, it feels weirdly John Hughesian in a sense where Hughes was older than his characters too, right?
Yeah.
And still being able to kind of tap into that confusion, you know, and disillusion. And in this case, being able to write these characters is kind of a natural evolution and really kind of speak to the times. Because yeah, he's 27 at this point, which I guess wouldn't be too far off of what these guys would be at the, really kind of they'd be in their early 20s essentially. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like these characters are just out of school,
right?
Or I kind of feel like Alicia's like a grad student. I almost feel like Alicia's like Araki. She's at USC trying to make these like video, because she's like a video artist, right? So she's always in the studio making these confessional tapes and then editing the tapes. And David is a performance sound artist or something. I can't figure it out, but like his eye patch, what the fuck's up with the eye patch?
I don't know. I
Like why?
I don't know. It feels like we're describing the prequel to Rent. I mean, it seems
a little bit, right? I mean, so I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah. I mean, they're young. They're just starting out, really, right? Which I think again like makes sense to be so confused, and we don't know like what is. Oh, that's right. Craig is an actor. No, I want to be a writer. No, I'm a photographer.
right. Yeah.
But again, I mean, everything.
I mean, it makes sense that he's the most confused because he's still confused about his sexuality as well. And I thought their interaction was really sweet and poignant. I thought how David handled Craig and like kind of it wasn't predatory. It also wasn't like standoffish. It also wasn't like he kind of understood where he was coming from. So it wasn't like this like fucking figure your shit out kind of thing too. But he was also very, he also cared for Alicia, right? He wasn't anxious to hurt her, but also had feelings for Craig as well. So like it
seemed a respectful kind of, distance. Right.
It's such a disservice that these films really are so hard to watch because again, you're looking at grainy, like transferred from 16 millimeter to digital or VHS to digital. Who the fuck knows?
I mean, it's like it's like a cam recording.
Right. I mean, like this, like if there were copies of this, I feel like this is what it would have been like watching it on a 19-inch CRT on a well-worn, VHS copy that's being passed around, it has been re-recorded and recorded and dubbed and dubbed and dubbed. Yeah. And you can barely make it out, but you're like, holy shit, you got to see this thing because it's like this guy's gonna be fucking somebody, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but now watching it, like even if you're watching it on your computer, which you couldn't possibly watch it on your TV, there's just no way.
No,
it looks like shit.
I tried, and I'm like, that's not
right. And the dialogue again, it makes you feel. It kind of takes you out because it is all overdubbed. He's filming on 16 millimeter at 30 seconds clip. He doesn't have a boom mic to capture the audio. Yeah. So a lot of the audio feels stilted and doesn't feel of the moment because it's clearly not. I mean, like they're rereading lines. Yeah. Now the good thing about that is you never really get the sense that they're rereading lines because you can't see their mouths moving anyway, right? I mean, there's no synchronization that's necessary because it just doesn't matter. But this is a grainy black and white, very hard to find and hard to watch film. I would say like I would, if you like Araki, I'd seek it out. But yeah, but I wouldn't. You're not going to get a ton of enjoyment out of the viewing experience.
No. Okay, so what do you think about the ending?
Remind me.
So the end, everything kind of again like comes to a head where Alicia, David, and Craig all kind of confront their feelings with each other, and then they end up in bed together.
Right.
And we don't see anything happen, right? Other than sort of just them lying in bed together. But then we get sort of like the next morning. And there's an implication that they all slept together.
Right.
Because they all have these like sheepish grins on their face. And then David sort of makes a funny face with a cigarette and they all kind of laugh. And then just as soon as they laugh, like their faces all fall.
Right. And the reason you had to remind me, because I again trying to like pair it up with Long Weekend too. It's like they're very similar films, and yeah. So and it's,
well, I think Long Weekend was initially titled Six Bewildered People, and then
and yeah, it was his 57 Up. It was his 7-Up series. It was just going to be more and more bewildered people until he got exponentially. I like it. I think, like, to me, because again, I've seen everything that comes, well, not everything, but I've seen a lot of what comes after it, right? And what like cribbed it. So you're talking about something like Threesome that clearly fucking cribs this movie, like, right? I mean, like this, like, and like I fucking love Threesome. But this is like watching Leary and then realizing that Bill Hicks exists, right?
Sure. Yes. Yes.
I'm like, oh well, shit! You just fucking stole this whole thing from an independent filmmaker, who could have Robert Rodriguez did his whole thing and like given more money and made Threesome, right? He could have easily done that, but like seeing all of this come to fruition later. Is obviously disappointing, and I mean, I guess I don't necessarily know if it's disappointing or not, but it doesn't, like, there was no recognition in Threesome to say, hey, thanks to Gregg Araki, or and of course you can't do that without getting sued, but ultimately out of everything that Araki does, and it's never like, it's always played for realism, at least in these first two. I like that he kind of tapped into that, how this would actually be. And again, that's kind of anti-Hughes, right? Because Hughes always, and not that I would even say that Araki like identifies, right? I mean, this is just my take on it, but but Hughes was always upbeat. The good guys always won, right? Everyone was friends at the end of
There's
the
always a budding romance to be,
Right. Bender walks off and pumps his fist, and that's a cool Tears for Fears moment, but it ain't fucking real, right? That doesn't happen. That's how, and so, like, the closest that Hughes ever came to a real ending was Pretty in Pink, when she ends up with Blaine, right? I mean, like, but outside of that, I like this Graduate-esque ending of like, we did this really cool fucking thing, and that was sexy and fun and hot, but now we have to deal with the ramifications of like, I'm still in love with this guy, and I've still got obligations to this girl, and now we're all kind of intertwined in a way that we're way too young to figure this shit out like that.
Right. They're still just as confused, if not more. Right. And now there's more sort of drama happening there. I don't mean drama in a bad way, just I mean like more things to sort out. Right. And I do think, I know Araki gave an interview with, I'm pretty sure like a now defunct magazine called Montage. Talking.
I still get Montage.
Oh, do you? Do you still get the? I get their Substack. I
get the print that and Cracked every month.
Where he talks about this idea of Hollywood movies feeling really fake, and I think these endings are reactions to that, right? Where this is how it would be, right? This is how this stuff would kind of actually go on. So I was trying to find anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Like knowing again, like knowing this is made in 1987, and that predates. It doesn't. What is it? It doesn't predate. She's Got to Have It. I think She's Got to Have It. Maybe it's in 1986. Or right around that same time frame. But him being in this era of doing this on a nothing budget, doing it all by himself, but then kind of laying the groundwork for what would become all of these dialogue heavy, introspective, for lack of a better term, like these kind of like white privilege films that would be ushered in the early.
Sure, this is Dream for an Insomniac.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, and so like, and then
there's a deep cut for
every
people out
fucking
there.
thing that would come after it, like Anderson and Baumbach and like Smith and fucking Tarantino and like. And again, it's not like they're all direct, and then there's like all these like offshoots, like Sleep With Me, and like there's just so many of like, you throw a dart at an indie section of a Blockbuster or a mom and pop video store, but you're gonna hit a film like that took cues from this,
right?
And so that's why I think these are important, because he was at the precipice of doing this before anybody fucking else was.
I also think these are in such contrast to The Living End.
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I know we'll talk about that like as we go on, but I mean, I found that really because I had not seen these before.
Yeah,
I don't know. Okay,
no.
right, but I'd seen Living in Nowhere. I mean, all of that stuff, and you watch these and you're like, holy shit, like this is quite a bit different,
right? Yeah, I mean, like the bombastic nature and like just the bizarre, storytelling techniques of these upcoming films compared to this kind of pared down. And look, a lot of that probably was driven by the budget, but also I think these were probably stories that he was either dealing with at the time or stories that he felt like he had to get out. And I think, I think that even speaks more to, what he was able to then, turn into, but to start out with also shows his influence that is, who the fuck talks about that? Like, I mean, like, it's not mentioned at all. Besides, you talking about like he's ushering in, he's part of the ushering in of an era of a new queer cinema. But like, really, I think that kind of does him a disservice in this case. Like, it's not like, I think showing that you can make, and again, regardless of what they look like or what they sound like, showing that you can actually do this on a nothing budget, that all you need is a film, a camera and some film, that you can make your story. You can make it. I mean, like, I think that's wildly important. And I do think they mean like ultimately that's something that drove, this probably wasn't Kevin Smith's first influence, but I mean, like, but knowing that he makes Clerks for 20,000,
right? It
has to be in the back of someone's mind that says, hey, this guy did this for $5,000. You can make a movie, right? Get your ideas down on film. It doesn't cost. It's not, you don't need millions and millions of dollars to make a film. You just need some friends, an idea, and a camera. And a little bit of vision. And it's not that easy, obviously. There's talent to that's behind that. But I mean, like, really,
but the idea is like, don't let the money thing just hold you back,
right? And this, because
the talent will come through.
All of this feels like punk rock, even like the opening titles and things like that. I mean, it all feels like
it's post-punk. Well, I mean, I say that I kind of joke, but I think even Araki has said that he doesn't so much identify as a gay filmmaker as like a post-punk filmmaker, right? And so, I mean, I think that's why I wanted to say that. And there is a different look. I don't think punk has irony. Araki has irony. Araki understands how to use irony.
Yeah,
and so I think that's where. And
I wouldn't classify either one of these films as gay cinema, really.
No,
I mean, not to take away from any of that. I mean, like, I know that there's so much that is not available to the queer community. So I don't want taking anything away that they want to capture as their own. But this is not so this isn't so dipped into queer culture that you can't walk away with something from a straight perspective or a cis perspective.
Well, it's a coming of age film. It's a sort of figuring things out or trying to figure things out. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, but again, like we have talked about, queer films that we praise for not wearing their queerness on their sleeve,
right?
Or not apologizing or not sort of feeling like they have to do anything different just because,
right?
And I think that's what this is doing, right? I mean, this is a film about three people.
It's so fucking weird. It's so like these two films like are such precursors for so much in the zeitgeist. Like even fucking Friends, like in Living Single, like it's fucking crazy that.
You watch these and you see the influence as it just goes through, especially the 90s, right?
Right. Like you talk about, and like I don't really recall, outside of Cassavetes and a little bit of Hartley, like really who was doing film specifically like this, right? A lot of the people we otherly mentioned were doing kind of bizarre films, like almost inaccessible films to an extent. This is again like it is like it really almost an immediate extension, like because I don't even know when the fuck, like this would have been the same year that San Elmo's Fire fucking comes out, right? So I mean, like like we're getting mainstream Hollywood Brat Pack extensions post high school, and like if you start talking about like this is a better film than San Elmo's Fire.
San Elmo's Fire was 85.
Oh, okay.
But still,
like I mean,
we're still in the same,
right,
same couple of years. But no, this is yeah.
I mean, and I don't mind. Look, I have a nostalgia factor for San Elmo's Fire. I know it's a shit movie, but like...
sure. Look, Rob Lowe playing saxophone,
right?
Absolutely, and his hair, absolutely. Young Demi Moore.
You can keep the Billy Joels, except for the stranger.
God. Fucking Billy
Judd
Joel.
Nelson, Ali Sheedy, Emilio Estevez, Mae Whitman.
Andrew McCarthy. You know, I see Andrew McCarthy now, and I just think, what a weenie. He looks like such a little weenie, doesn't he? I'm sorry. I know that that's kind of like,
Yeah,
you know, just, you know, I'm attacking his character because he looks Weasley.
Well,
but what was the movie he was in? It was a Nick Nolte movie with Michael Madsen and Jennifer Connelly. Well, Jennifer Connelly's like dead body. Mulholland Falls.
Oh, yes.
And he plays.
God, I completely forgot that he was in that.
I know, right? But he's just so like weenie in
Another
that film.
movie that should have been like
should have been better. Should have been a lot better.
Yeah,
Yeah, should have been a lot better. Anyway,
yeah. I mean, like he really leaned into. Gosh, he sucked. Like out of all the Brat Packers, and you've seen he's making a documentary, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm actually interested in that because it was just so part of our era,
sure, right.
And I'm interested to see. Like, I'm a little weary because I'm like, I don't want these guys to be like to not recognize what it gave them, and this idea of like, oh, we were upset by being called fuck you, like you weren't, like you were very very happy to be called, like being part of that. Because like you interview John Cryer and he's like, I was Brat Pack adjacent, like all this kind of shit, like whatever. But like McCarthy like really leaned into his like Weekend at Bernie's persona, like he was that way in Mannequin. Like so once he got out of, like I'm trying to remember, like I don't really remember him. Like he's the one who's in love, with Ali Sheedy in St. Elmo's Fire. That's so dumb. Fucking Andy McDowell. I hated Annie McDowell for the longest time. I don't know why. She always bugged me. Like in St. Elmo's Fire specifically. Like that's such a weird like group of actors. The Brat Pack was such a weird group of actors. Like, and I wouldn't even think like really Robert Downey Jr. to me wasn't in the Brat Pack. Anthony Michael Hall definitely was. But like, man, what a weird time.
So strange.
But
anyway,
if Ali Sheedy's listening, I'd love to get her on the podcast.
Yeah, come talk to us.
Or Molly. I'd like to talk to Molly.
Or Molly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I would say if you're a film lover, and again, you know, we do this because we do it for the podcast. I'm not sure if I would have ever like
do it for the cast.
I don't know if I ever would have sought out these films if we weren't like actually doing it. I don't think I would have just like I would have given up. I'd be like,
oh yeah, yeah. Okay, they're not okay. Fine. They're not well, and I would have given up the first time I tried to watch. Like, okay, no, never mind.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing is that I would encourage you to watch them. But that being said, I would understand if you just couldn't possibly get.
I mean, I even asked you, like, are we doing these first two? Because like they're hard to find and hard to watch.
But
so I'm glad.
Oh, and I'm gonna pull the curtain back. A lot of times I'd say yes because I want to be the only podcast that's ever fucking talked about.
Absolutely, no, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, there's all kinds of podcasts that will talk to you about the Fall Guy. I don't really care to be that kind of podcast.
Talk about the Fall Guy,
right? I mean, we might at some point, but not the one.
Maybe,
not
but
that,
like,
but
yeah,
but like we'll talk about Hitmen, but it's not like. But I want the meat of the dinner. I want the meat of the dinner to be shit you haven't ever seen before. You need to go out and seek out. And that way, when some schmo in Iceland watches Nowhere, he goes out and does a Google search on Araki, looks up 3 Bewildered People, does a Google search in our episode.
There you go.
I mean, that's the one.
So Iceland, if you're listening,
right,
we'll be coming to do a live episode soon in Reykjavik. Okay. Anything else you want to say about 3 Bewildered People or The Coffee Table? I mean, these are two films like really worth your time. I think to seek out and to watch. I mean, they're both difficult watches for different reasons, but
yeah, no, I think we've said it all. But I would agree. I would say go out and watch both of them, because definitely watch The Coffee Table because I think. We'll see more from that director.
Yeah. And
I think this is a film, if you want to kind of, especially if you have horror lovers in your life, I mean, even though it's not really horror, I think it's a fun one to spring on people.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, we will be back to you soon with more Araki and a new film to talk about. So, yeah, I guess until then,
Keep screaming.
This night has opened my eyes, and I will never see again. You kicked and cried like a bullied child, a grown man of 25. Oh, he said he'd cure your ills, but he didn't and he never will.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time.